She said my name like she'd used it 100 times before, except we'd never met. That's the part that still gets me. I was standing in a hospital hallway holding 2 vending machine coffees, waiting for my coworker to come back from an x-ray, when an older woman in the chair beside me looked up and said, "You must be Ryan." I hadn't told her my name. Nobody had introduced us. I just stood there like a man who'd forgotten how sentences work and said, "Yeah, how did you?" "She talks about you every single day," she said, like that explained everything. Like that was a normal thing to say to a stranger holding bad coffee in a hospital corridor. My name is Ryan Foster. I'm 31. I work in logistics for a mid-sized shipping company outside Columbus, and up until that Tuesday, I thought my biggest problem was convincing my coworker Maya Kessler that filing cabinets should be alphabetized by last name and not by whatever feels right, which was somehow her actual system. Maya and I had worked 2 desks apart for almost 2 years. She ran client accounts. I handled the freight side. We were friendly in that office way where you know someone's coffee order and their opinions on the break room microwave, but not much else. She was sharp, quick with a comeback, the kind of person who made Monday morning meetings almost bearable. Dark hair always half up like she didn't have time to finish the thought, brown eyes that missed nothing, and a laugh that carried 2 cubicles over whether she meant it to or not. I liked her. I want to be honest about that up front. I liked her the way you like something you've decided not to want, because wanting things at work gets complicated, and I'd already learned that lesson once with an ex-coworker who taught me the hard way that mixing timesheets with feelings was a bad system. So I kept it professional, polite, contained. That Tuesday, Maya got a call in the middle of a client meeting. Her face went pale in a way I'd never seen on her. She didn't explain, just grabbed her bag and left. 10 minutes later, I got a text. Not a work text. A personal one, which she'd never sent me before. "Sorry to ask this, but is there any chance you could drive me to the hospital? My mom fell. I don't trust myself behind a wheel right now." I was already grabbing my keys before I finished reading it twice. The drive over, she barely spoke. Hands in her lap, jaw tight, staring out the window like the road owed her an explanation. I didn't push. I just drove, and once, at a red light, I reached over and put my hand briefly on her arm. Not a big gesture, just enough to say I'm here. She looked at my hand, then at me, and something in her shoulders dropped half an inch. "Thank you for this," she said quietly. "You don't have to thank me for driving a car," I said. "I do this daily, usually with worse company." That got the smallest laugh out of her, which felt like an accomplishment given the circumstances. Her mother had slipped on a wet kitchen floor and hit her hip. Not life-threatening, but it meant hours of waiting, x-rays, forms, a doctor who spoke slowly and carefully in the way doctors do when they want you to actually listen. Maya went back with her mom for the imaging. I stayed in the hallway because someone needed to hold the coffee and the dignity, and apparently that job fell to me. That's when the woman in the chair looked up. She was maybe late 50s, silver starting to take over dark hair, a cardigan draped over one shoulder like she'd left in a hurry, which she probably had. I assumed she was there for someone else, another patient's family member killing time the way strangers do in waiting rooms, nodding at each other without really seeing each other. Then she said my name. "Ryan?" I turned, confused. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" "No," she said, smiling like she found that fact slightly funny. "But I feel like I do. I'm Barbara, Maya's aunt, her mom's sister." That untangled the mystery a little, but not all the way. "Nice to meet you," I said, still holding 2 coffees like an idiot. "I have to ask, how did you know my name?" Barbara looked at me for a second like she was deciding how much to give away. Then she said the sentence that rearranged my whole week. "She talks about you every single day." I actually laughed, the nervous kind. "I doubt that. We mostly argue about filing systems." "Oh, I've heard about the filing systems," Barbara said, unbothered. "I've heard about the freight numbers you argue over, the coffee you always order for her without asking, the time you drove 40 minutes out of your way to grab a part for some shipment because you didn't want her taking the blame for a mistake that wasn't hers." She tilted her head. "You want to know what I heard yesterday?" she said, Ryan noticed I was having a bad week before I even said anything. That's not nothing, sweetheart. I stood there holding coffee that was getting colder by the second, trying to figure out what to do with my face. She really said that? Every single day, Barbara repeated, like she enjoyed watching it land twice. For almost a year now. A year. That number sat in my chest heavier than it should have, for a simple piece of information. I didn't know that, I said, mostly to myself. Barbara smiled the way older women smile, when they've clearly figured something out long before the two people involved have caught up. No, she said. I don't imagine you did. You two are very good at not knowing things you clearly know. Before I could answer that, the door opened and Maya came out pushing her mother's wheelchair, both of them looking tired but okay, the kind of okay that comes with relief attached. Maya's mother had a soft brace on her hip and an expression that suggested she'd already made peace with several weeks of being fussed over. There he is, Maya's mom said, looking at me. The famous Ryan. I nearly dropped the coffee that time. Mom, Maya said, color rising fast in her cheeks. Please. What? I'm allowed to be excited. Barbara's been dying to meet him too. Barbara raised her eyebrows at me like, see, told you. Maya looked between her mother, her aunt, and me, clearly doing rapid math on how much damage had already been done in the 15 minutes she'd been gone. What exactly happened out here? Nothing, Barbara said too innocently. We just talked about how much you talk about him. Barbara. What? It's true. You called him twice this week just to tell him about client wins. You texted me a whole paragraph about how he covered for you during that vendor call last month. I'm just providing context. Maya closed her eyes like she was praying for the hospital floor to open up and swallow her whole. I'm going to need everyone in this family to stop talking immediately. I couldn't help the smile creeping onto my face. No, please, continue. This is the most interesting thing that's happened to me all week. Maya shot me a look. You're not helping. I'm actively enjoying this, I said. I feel like I should have brought snacks. Her mother laughed from the wheelchair, wincing slightly at the movement. I like him, she announced to no one in particular, which felt like a verdict more than an observation. We got Maya's mom settled at home a few hours later. Her hip needed rest, not surgery, which was the good outcome nobody had wanted to promise out loud until the doctor actually said it. Maya walked me to my car afterward, arms crossed against the evening chill, looking like a woman working up to a sentence she wasn't sure she wanted to say. I need to apologize for my entire family, she said. Don't, I said. That might have been the best afternoon I've had in months, and your mom fell down, so that's saying something about my usual months. That earned a real laugh, tired but genuine. They weren't wrong, you know. She looked at the pavement instead of me. About the talking about you thing. My chest did something complicated. Yeah? Yeah. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a habit I'd noticed 100 times without letting myself notice what it meant. You're kind of a big presence in my daily commentary. Has been for a while. I had no idea, I said, which was mostly true and a little bit of a lie, because some quiet part of me had wondered. That's because I'm very good at hiding it behind spreadsheets, she said. It's a skill. An underrated one. She looked up at me then, really looked, the way people do when they've decided the careful version of a conversation isn't worth having anymore. Can I tell you something slightly embarrassing? Given today's context, I feel prepared for anything. When my mom fell, and I panicked, and I didn't know who to call, she said slowly, I didn't think about calling a friend from college or my roommate or literally anyone else in my contacts. I thought about you first. Before I even processed how strange that was. I stood there in the parking lot letting that settle into me properly. That's not embarrassing, I said. That might be the nicest thing anyone said about me in a while. It's a little embarrassing, she said, because I've spent about a year pretending that meant nothing. Why? She exhaled, like the honesty cost her something to produce. Because you're my coworker, and it felt easier to file the feeling away instead of dealing with it. Turns out I'm bad at filing things. You've mentioned that. I laughed, and something in me loosened that had been tight for longer than I wanted to admit. For what it's worth, I said, I've been filing the exact same feeling away in the exact same drawer. Maya's eyes lifted to mine, surprised in a way that felt like hope trying not to get ahead of itself. Yeah? Yeah. I told myself it was about not complicating work. Mostly it was about being a coward. That's very self-aware for a man who brought 2 coffees into a hospital and forgot to drink either one. I looked down. Both cups, still full, stone cold. I got distracted. By my aunt outing your entire personality to me? By finding out you talk about me every day? I said. That's a hard thing to recover from mid-conversation. The parking lot light flickered above us, buzzing softly, the kind of ordinary detail that somehow makes a moment feel more real instead of less. Maya stepped a little closer, arms still crossed but looser now, less like a shield and more like a habit she was deciding to drop. So what do we do with that? She asked. The talking everyday thing. The filing away thing. I think, I said slowly, we stopped pretending 2 years of noticing each other was just good coworker instincts. That's a big leap for a man standing in a hospital parking lot holding cold coffee. I contain multitudes, I said, which made her laugh again. The real kind. The kind that used to carry over cubicles and now felt like it was meant just for me. Okay, she said. Then ask me properly. Not because my mom fell, not because my aunt ambushed you with information. Because you actually want to. I set both coffees down on the hood of my car, which felt symbolic in a way I appreciated even as I did it. Maya Kessler, would you like to get dinner with me? Somewhere that isn't a hospital cafeteria and doesn't involve either of our relatives narrating our feelings out loud? Her smile came slow and complete. I'd like that a lot. Good, I said, because I've apparently been the topic of daily conversation for a year, and I'd like to actually earn that reputation now. We had dinner 3 days later. No hospital, no relatives, just the 2 of us at a quiet Italian place with candles that made everything feel a little more honest than fluorescent office lighting ever had. She told me about her mom's recovery. I told her I'd started actually looking forward to Mondays for reasons that had nothing to do with the filing cabinets. She laughed at that longer than the joke deserved, which felt like the whole point. Barbara texted Maya a week later. Just one line. Tell Ryan I expect an invitation to the wedding. Maya showed me the message, mortified, and I told her to tell Barbara I'd already started saving a seat. 6 months in, Maya moved her desk 2 feet closer to mine, which the office noticed immediately and nobody commented on, mostly because everyone had apparently seen this coming before we did. Her mother still calls me the famous Ryan every single time I visit, which Maya insists she'll never fully recover from, though I notice she never actually asks her mother to stop. A year after that hospital hallway, I proposed in the same waiting room, quietly, no crowd, just Maya and a nurse who happened to walk by and immediately teared up on our behalf. Barbara later claimed she predicted the location down to the chair. Maya said yes before I finished the sentence, then told me I'd ruined her plan to propose to me first, which she swears she'd been building up to for weeks. Sometimes people ask how we finally got together after 2 years of near misses, and Maya just smiles and says, my mom fell down. And I add, and her aunt has no concept of privacy. Both of those things are true. Neither one is the whole story. The whole story is that sometimes the people who love us say the quiet part out loud before we're brave enough to say it ourselves, and all we have to do is finally listen. So tell me, what would you have done if a stranger in a hospital hallway told you that someone you'd been quietly falling for had been talking about you every single day? And have you ever found out how someone really felt about you from the person who wasn't supposed to say anything at all? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.